Leading figures of the Renaissance. From the 14th through the 16th centuries, Europe crackled with energy. Trade and commerce boomed. Cities grew. Artists and writers experimented with their crafts and created wonderful works of art and literature. New ways of thinking led to inventions and scientific discoveries. Rulers and wealthy patrons supported the work of artists, scientists, and explorers. Why was there so much creative energy during the Renaissance? One reason was the Renaissance ideal that people should be educated in many areas. People who studied art or music, for example, were also interested in science. To this day, we still use the phrase Renaissance person to describe someone who is skilled and knowledgeable in many fields. You have already met the best example of this Renaissance ideal, Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo trained as a painter, but he was also a scientist, engineer, musician, and architect. He designed fortifications, waterways, and machines. He studied and drew plants, animals, and people. In his notebooks, he sketched ideas for inventions that were far ahead of his time. Leonardo is one of 10 Renaissance artists, scientists, monarchs, and writers you will study in this section. First, though, let's look at how the Renaissance spread throughout Europe from its birthplace in Italy. The Renaissance spreads through Europe. As you have learned, the Renaissance began in Italy. From there it spread to France, Germany, Flanders, which is modern-day Belgium, Holland, England, and Spain. Renaissance ideas were spread through trade, travel, and education. Italy was the gateway to Europe for much of the trade from Asia, Africa, and the Greek-speaking cities of the East. Traders moved through Italy to the rest of Europe, bringing a rich flow of new ideas along with their goods. Visitors to Italy also helped spread Renaissance ideas. People from all over Europe traveled to Italy to learn as well as to trade. Scholars went to study humanism. Artists studied Italian painting and sculpture to learn new styles and techniques. When these travelers returned home, many of them founded art schools and universities. Artists taught others what they had learned in Italy. Scholars began to teach the new ideas of experimentation and logical thinking. The spread of ideas was made even easier by the invention of the printing press. This machine presses inked type or plates onto paper to create many copies of work. In about 1450, a German named Johannes Gutenberg dramatically improved on existing printing methods. He invented a printing press that used movable type, characters that could be rearranged and used over again on other printing jobs. Unlike the Chinese, who used wooden blocks for printing, Gutenberg cast his type in metal. Before Gutenberg's invention, most books were written and copied by hand. It could take 4 or 5 months to copy a 200-page book. The new press could produce 300 pages in a single day. As a result, books and short works called pamphlets could be made much more quickly and cheaply. The number of printers in Europe soon increased rapidly. People used printed matter to spread new ideas, discoveries, and inventions. And since printed material was more widely available, more people learned to read. As new ideas spread, people in more countries were swept up in the spirit of the Renaissance. Let's look now at 10 leading Renaissance figures and their accomplishments. Michelangelo, Italian sculptor and painter. You met Michelangelo, 1475 through 1564, in an earlier lesson. Michelangelo was born in a small village near Florence. He grew up to become one of the greatest painters and sculptors in history. Personality and training. Historians say that Michelangelo had a difficult childhood. His mother died when he was 6 years old. His father was stern and demanding. Perhaps this troubled early life contributed to Michelangelo's famously bad temper. Although he was very religious, he was known to use fierce words when he was angry. He was also intensely ambitious. When Michelangelo was 13, he became an apprentice to a painter in Florence. At 15, he began studying under a sculptor who worked for the powerful Medici family. Michelangelo lived for a time in the Medici household. There he met many leading thinkers, artists, and writers. Talents and achievements. Michelangelo was amazingly gifted in both sculpture and painting. His art combines ideal beauty with emotional expressiveness. To other artists, Michelangelo's talent seemed almost godlike. Michelangelo's sculptures show his amazing talent for bringing life to figures carved from giant blocks of marble. When he was just 24, he carved his famous Pieta. A Pieta is a depiction of Mary, the mother of Jesus, mourning over her crucified son. Michelangelo's Pieta shows Mary tenderly holding the body of Jesus on her lap. Two other magnificent sculptures by Michelangelo are his David and Moses. David is 17 feet tall. The statue combines great beauty with the intense look of a youth who is about to go into battle. Michelangelo's Moses is also a strong, powerful figure. In the Bible, Moses receives the 10 Commandments from God. Meanwhile, his people, the Hebrews, are worshiping false gods. The expression of Michelangelo's Moses is a mixture of compassion and anger. Michelangelo is perhaps best known for painting the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, the Pope's chapel in Rome. Michelangelo labored for almost 4 years on a high platform to complete this work. He covered the curved ceiling with brilliantly colored scenes from the Bible. The scenes contain over 300 figures and continue to awe visitors to Rome today. Titian, Italian painter. Titian, about 1488 through 1576, was born in a village in the Italian Alps. The exact date of his birth is uncertain. Early in life, Titian's talent took him to the wealthy society of Venice. He became the city's greatest Renaissance painter. Personality and training. As a boy, Titian was sent to Venice to train with famous painters. As a young man, he worked with an artist named Giorgione, a master of fresco painting. A fresco is a painted on the wet plaster of a wall or ceiling. Titian also studied examples of art from Rome and Florence. In time, he outgrew the influence of his teachers and created his own style. Titian was a persuasive man. According to legend, long after he was rich and famous, he persuaded patrons to support his art by claiming to be poor, but he was also said to be quite generous with his friends. Talents and achievements. Titian's early work was precise and detailed. Later, he developed a freer style. He used blobs of paint to create vivid forms, colors, and textures. He was known for his inspired use of color and for loose, lively brushwork that made his pictures appear to be alive. His work also shows a flair for expressing human personality. Titian painted many classical myths and Bible stories. As a court painter, he created portraits of the rich and powerful. In 1516, he was named the official painter of Venice. Later, Holy Roman Emperor Charles V made him court painter of Italy. Titian made many portraits of Charles V and other royalty. Charles greatly admired Titian's work. There is a story that the emperor once picked up a paintbrush that had fallen to the floor. Titian protested, "I am not worthy of such a servant." The emperor replied, "Titian is worthy to be served by Caesar," referring to the emperor of ancient Rome. Charles even made Titian a knight, a first-time honor for a painter. Titian is often described as a painter's painter because of his influence on other artists' use of color and brush strokes. Centuries later, many painters still try to copy his techniques.